In the world of the paranormal, most people are agnostic until they utter these four little words. It happened to me. Real ghost stories told by real people.
Hi, my name is Amber and I'm 31 years old, and this is my story. I was raised in a very religious household, and so I was taught at a young age that ghosts didn't exist, that people could not see things move, that any experience that people had was just something that they were tricked into believing, or they were deceived, or it was some kind of demonic influence. And so all growing up, I would listen to these stories or listen to pastors talk down to them, and just never really once even thought it was possible. From a young age, I always was able to read energy and get a feeling whenever I would go into places or have a type of premonition, but I just always kind of stuffed that down because I wasn't able to really exercise that and believe that that was even a gift. And so I just left it alone. As I grew, my dad was kind of a rolling stone, and so he moved pillar to post every 6 months to a year. The most we ever stayed in a place was 18 months. He was either running from something or going to a new opportunity. And it was at the same situation where he decided we needed to move from one place to another because he was tired of where we were. So we went and looked at this trailer in Decatur, Tennessee, and it was in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was in the country and in the middle of a field. It was a double wide trailer and very, very run down. So when we went in as a family to kind of look at it and look around, we noticed that there were drug paraphernalia everywhere. There was, it was very obviously a drug house.
Hello, my name is Brandon Hughes. I find cemetery history and remote viewing practice are more than just intriguing. Years ago, on a Friday night in May 2008, I began a discovery session into the history of a family at Franklin City Cemetery, located in Franklin, Tennessee. The family of interest had a Spanish or French surname on their gravestones, their markers. This was the second attempt, my only second attempt at remote viewing The Departed. The session starts in my room, lying in bed in a meditative state. I'm holding a stone I borrowed from the cemetery in my left hand, and I'm writing and recording, sketching with my right hand. A recorder is on, an autonomous monitor is running. This is to help guide the journey. It's like a pre-recorded tool. I visit the scene with my mind's eye to explore the surroundings and the site, and write down impressions or pictures. And as part of this methodology I speak an evocation. It goes like this: approach, observe, collect, perceive, touch the image signal stream. This is to me is like a solo seance, and I leave breadcrumbs so I can find my way back out. So as images start streaming, I record the scene: sights, sounds, smells, touch, taste, emotions, everything. I try to ignore my own interpretations as much as possible. So in this vision, I see a crowd of people walking the road beside the cemetery, and it's like in a procession. Appears to be a family. There's people. It's quiet. There's people talking just to themselves, and I see a black horse and a black cart covered in flowers, shaped as a box with glass windows. And I smell odors. I smell the horse. I see wheels turning. I smell flowers, and I hear singing. And then I see myself standing beside an open grave, and people are standing and singing and walking around us. And there's this lady in white standing beside me, and also there's a lady in white in the box. And the lady beside me is speaking and mouthing the words, like shapes of words, I think to the song that the people are singing. I don't understand the words, but I feel like I should, like I've heard it before. And then the lady in white says something in Spanish or French over the lady in the box. And I think she's praying. I hear the name of a saint, like a saint's name. Now the singers have started to walk around and light candles. And there's this slight breeze on the air, and my skin is getting goosebumps. I hear like people talking. There's strong fragrance on the air from the flowers. And then I feel rain, and I notice the people are wearing red ribbons on their sleeves, and there's red ribbons on the box. And the lady in white that's speaking, saying the prayers, is holding a red ribbon.
We looked through all the rooms, and we got to the master bedroom, and there was a shotgun hole in the wall where obviously it had discharged and hit the wall, and it was head level. And my immediate thought was, someone died here. I don't want to live here. But of course I couldn't really verbalize that because no one would have believed me. We moved in, we got everything cleaned up. My mom added a third bedroom for my middle brother on the front porch. She just kind of closed it in and put up plywood for walls. And I had two brothers. We all had our own room. A few weeks go by, and strange things start happening in my room. You know, the door opens while I'm laying in bed, or things move in my room, or things start disappearing. I hear knocks on the door and there's nobody there. And I just dismissed a lot of it as my brother's playing tricks on me, or, old trailer makes old doors open. And so I just never really thought into it. I ignored the feeling that I had. Probably about 3 or 4 months into living there, I was laying in bed one night, and I heard something walking outside my window. And it was not an animal. It was a very distinct human footprint sound. So I go to look out my window, and there is this figure standing in my window of a girl or a woman, and really, really just freaked me out. And I just so happened to glance at the time when it happened. It was 2:33 a.m. And I just got back in bed and I covered up and I prayed and I was like, this cannot be happening, it's not real. Because the person outside my window was not flesh and blood. It was, you could see, almost see through it. So I woke up the next day and I chalked it up to a nightmare. I was like, there's just no way this is possible. I'm just going to write it off. And it wasn't long after that, I was up with my brother in his room waiting out a storm. It was really bad. It was really late at night. And as I'm sitting there, I was holding our dog, and our dog starts getting very restless and whiny. And my brother looks at me and he's like, do you see her? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean, do I see her? Do you see her? She's look at our room. I look at my door. And I look up at the door, and she's literally kind of standing half body, peering in through the doorway, just staring. And in like a split second, she disappeared. And I kind of punched his arm. I'm like, what time? What's going on? What time is it? You know, what's going on? And he's like, it's 2:33 a.m. I was like, what the heck?
And then the scene, it starts to dim and darken and get quieter. My body feels cool and quiet. Then there's no singing, and no flowers, no fragrances, and the timer is sounding off. So I'm coming up and out of this meditation. And after this RV session, it's still Friday. I dream about that night, a similar lady in white with red ribbons in her hair. And I think maybe my dream carried over some of the energy charge from that RV session. And I brought in and anchored some connections there, like an imprint. If you've done remote viewing or studied dreams, you know what I'm talking about. So the next morning, I was curious and inspired by these experiences, and I tried as an experiment. I would tie a red thread on my finger. We'll see where this goes. And I lit a candle in memory of the lady in white. It said the prayer and it's spoken in my dream. And so I just said a prayer asking, like protection and safety in travels. So that morning, it's a Saturday before Mother's Day, I get on my scooter, and I rode a scooter right into town on the highway into Franklin. I'm about 2 miles in, and I come over this hill, slight hill, and I'm coming down the other side, and I get this eerie premonition, a very strong, like a voice in my head says, telling me something's not right. There's something in the road that shouldn't be there. And at that moment, that's when I see the truck in the opposite lane is pulling a trailer. And the trailer had just come off, come loose, and is veering over into my lane. And it passes across the front of me in just a split second and barely misses me. So it crosses over into the ditch, tumbles over, and so I swerve and pull over to the side of the road, and I'm sitting there trying to gather my wits, my heart's pounding. I look over to the guy in the truck, and he's getting out and starts walking across the street toward me, and I'm walking toward him. And we ask, are you okay? And I'm like, are you all right? And I say, I'm kind of shook up, but I think I'm okay. And I tell him about this. This morning I said a prayer, asking protection during my travels. And maybe it worked because I'm alive. And I told him about the red string on my finger. And this is where it gets peculiar. The guy, I've never met this person, a stranger. He says, my grandmother used to do that. That was her thing. she'd put ribbons in her hair, and she would tie one for each prayer or each person that she was praying about. And I said, "Oh my, that's incredible. That's crazy. You know, I don't know anybody that does that." But he says, "Yeah, my whole family, they have a history here in Franklin. Our history goes back to the 1800s." And I'm thinking, that's the same age as these stones in the cemetery. But I didn't tell him what else I had gotten into. But I thought, this is more than a coincidence. You know, it's maybe an answered prayer, or I believe someone intervened that day. And I'll never forget that.
There's no way that there's a coincidence that the same apparition appeared in your doorway at the same time I saw it outside my window a different night. So immediately I just started thinking, okay, there's really something going on here. Of course I couldn't go to anybody about it. The things still moved around. You know, there was a little bit of a break of a few weeks, and I thought things were kind of calming down. Maybe I was really just making it up in my head. I don't know, talking myself out of it. And so I went to bed one night, and as I'm sleeping, I wake up with hands around my neck, and I'm being choked, and I cannot get free. I can't breathe, and I feel a person hovering over me, and it's her. And I have this image of a tombstone is hovering, and this is Elizabeth. And I finally moved enough that everything broke and everything disappeared from my room, and I was stone cold, and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move, and the time was 2:33 a.m. And I was like, there's something very significant with this, and this whatever this is getting more aggressive, and it's decided to touch me. And so whenever we went to the library the next time, I tried my best to look in newspapers in recent years trying to figure out what had happened, and I could never find anything about a girl named Elizabeth that had died in that area. But with it being a former drug house, you know, it could have been anybody. So my parents had decided that they had found somewhere outside of Decatur they wanted us to move to. And, you know, this had been like 8 months of all these crazy kind of things happening. And so we were packing up and we were getting ready, we were going to be moving. And one night I'm laying, and I always slept with my door closed, always. And I kept something in front of it just in case it popped open in the night. And I get jolted awake and my door's open and a white light just fills my room. I mean, it so white, so bright, so blinding. It was insane. And I look, and she appears at the end of my bed and starts pulling me up completely out of my bed into a sitting position. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, like Poltergeist, the movie, the line came from the movie, "Don't go into the light, Marianne, don't go into the light." I'm like, she's trying to pull me into death. That is literally the stark fear that I had. And I kept getting pulled and pulled. I had no control over what was going on to my body. And so I just closed my eyes and I did the only thing I knew to do, and it was pray. And I prayed and I prayed out loud, and I just yelled and suddenly just blacked out, and I dropped. And I landed on my side. And I look at the clock, and it's 2:33, and I cannot feel myself from head to toe. I am completely paralyzed. That was so intense and so scary that it was the first night I went and I got in the bed with my parents and I said, "This is what's going on." And of course they didn't believe me. They said it was a nightmare. But it was the most terrifying moment of my life. Within a few days, we moved out. And she didn't follow me. She didn't attach herself to me. But it was so intense. And that was the event that changed my heart and my mind on ghosts and apparitions and how they can attach and affect people. And that it just changed my life from there. And that's my story. Thank you for listening.